Hi Heidi, Monday, July the 20th, and what I did during the weekend was to go through a diagnostic test. I looked at a few of the videos and started through this diagnostic test on decimals. So looking at writing as a decimal, choosing the best statement, writing a number, a whole number and a fraction as a decimal, being able to represent the big pictures with 100 squares representing what has been shaded as decimals, and then of course rounding up. The first one that I did is I have to write as a decimal 63/100ths. And of course you can see my answer there, but the reasoning was because we have 100 squares here, that row there, that 10, is 10 hundredths or 1/10. So there's 20 hundredths, 30, 40, 50, 60 hundredths, and a further 3. So each of these rows here, if I go back to my pencil, each of these rows here is 1/10. So if I go down to this table, ones, tenths and 100ths, I've obviously got no ones. And as you can see, I've got 6 rows coloured in. So I have 6/10ths, and I then have these 3 squares left over that are hundredths. So my number, ones, tenths and hundredths, the decimal point is after the ones or the units, and so my number is 0.63 as a decimal. The next one is to write the decimal equivalent for 3/10ths, and this one I could even go without doing the colouring in diagram. If you have a look at the table on the right hand side, the dark grey one, it's got ones, it's got tenths and it's got hundredths. So in our number we've got 3/10ths, so all I would need to do would be to write a 3 under the tenths column, remembering that the decimal or the decimal point goes between the ones and the tenths. There are no ones in that number because it's less than 10/10ths. So my decimal for that is 0.3. If I look at the next one, I've got 6 and 8/10ths. So I've got 6 ones. So once again, without even worrying about shading, I can say, okay, I've got 6 ones. How many tenths have I got? I've got 8/10ths. And the decimal point goes between the ones and the tenths column, so my answer would be 6.8. This one here, question 5, 4 and 8/10ths. Okay, I've got 4 ones and I have 8/10ths, so my answer would be 4.8. I could put in a 0 there and say, okay, well I've got no hundredths as well, but we don't need to worry about that. They're only going to the tenths, 1 decimal place. If I then look at the second problem there, question 6, I've got 8 and 3/10ths. So I've got 8 ones, or 8 units as I call them. Decimal point goes between the ones and the tenths. How many tenths have I got? 3. So my answer for that is 8.3. If you look at these problems here, I've got, in this first problem, I've got a whole row and then 5 more. So I've got 1/10 and I've got 5 hundredths. So I could write that as 0.1 1 for the 1/10 and 5 for the 500ths, 0.15. In the next problem, how many rows have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've got 5/10. And left over I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have 8 100ths. Just check that you can see that on the screen. I think you can. In this problem here, I've got 2/10. Okay, one row, second row, so 2/10, and I have 4 smaller parts, 400ths. So I've got 2/10 and 400ths as a decimal, 0.24. And this one, I've got a whole thing. So there's a 1, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4/10, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hundredths. So this number is 1.48. For questions 15 and 16, they wanted to be able to write 4.71 in the first case into its parts. So that's the ones, the tenths and the hundredths. So obviously there is 4 before the decimal point. So to the left of the decimal point we have a 4. So we've got 4 ones. Our next one is 0.7. So that tells us that we have 7/10. And lastly, the 1 there means that we have 100th. So our number 4.71 can be written as 4 plus 7/10 plus 100th. Make that look like a plus. On the right then we have 0.74. So we've got no ones, we don't need to write anything there. We have 7/10 again, our first place, and we also have in the second position 4 hundredths. So we have 7/10 and 4 hundredths can be written as 0.74. So we're talking about being able to write these in different formats. 0.74, this one over here, is in decimal form, and on the right hand side 7/10 and 4 hundredths is then writing it in fractional form. In the last section of the test I did, I had to write numbers to the nearest whole number. So what we're doing is we're looking at the decimal part and we're saying, okay, is this closest to the whole number that is given, or is it in fact closer to the next whole number? So we're rounding it off. It's like saying if we've got 99 cents, we can round that up to $1. Or if we have 83 cents, we can round that up to the nearest cent. So we're rounding to the nearest whole number. So 98.1, they suggest having a number line. So we start with 98, and the next whole number up would be 99. So what they're wanting us to do is to work out where our number is between 98 and 99. If we imagine, I'll just get rid of that, if we imagine that we're writing our 98.1, we have to divide the space between 98 and 99 into 10 parts. There's 5 parts, 5/10, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. We want to represent 98.1, so 98.1 is obviously going to be about there. The question then is 98.1 closer to 98 or is it closer to 99? So you can see there a little gap between 98.1 and 98, or we have a much larger gap to 99. So our answer is that this is, to the nearest whole number, is written as 98. Looking at question 19, our number is 2.97. We've got to write that to the nearest whole number. Once again, they suggest a number line, and obviously we're starting with 2 and we're going to go up to 3. If we look, we've got to represent 2.97 on that number line. There's 2.5. So 2.97 is going to be tucked in here somewhere. And so the question is 2.97 closer to 2, or is it perhaps closer to 3? And the answer, of course, is that it's really very close to 3. So our answer for that is that 2.97 is closest to 3. If we look at the next one, 4.2, obviously because it's not halfway, which would be 4.5, it's going to be much closer to 4 than it is to the next whole number, 5. So when I look at the problems, I say, okay, is the digit a 5 or greater? If it's a 5 or greater, then we simply say that we round it up to the next whole number. If it's less than that 2.5, then we go down to the previous number. So Heidi, I've gone through the diagnostic test and tried to show you using this limited technology to see whether this revision, I suppose, helps you. You should have access to, and I've sent it to Mum, the OneNote. Now, my understanding is that the things that I've been writing on it today and previously should be visible on your copy. So what I'd like you to do is, could you text me or send me your email address? So I need your email address, and what I can do then is send you a copy of this OneNote, and you should be able to see what I've written. You won't be able to see what I've erased. I was trying to add audio to this, and because I've got the sound system set up, it has become quite difficult. So if you can send me your email address, so that's for you, that's Heidi. My email address is laurie.doheny@gmail.com. Okay, if you can send me an email from your email, then I'll know what it is and I'll send you back a copy of this OneNote and see how you go. So hopefully you're making some progress, and I'll sign off until next time. Bye!